Imagine turning a $100 evaluation with an end of day drawdown into 5, maybe even 6 figures in income. That's right, it's crazy, but it does happen out there. Is it too good to be true, or is it the secret of quitting your day job and getting rid of your 9 to 5? I sat down with TradeDay CEO James Thorpe to find out exactly what 95% of traders do wrong and what the future of TradeDay looks like. Let's go. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and in today's video I interview James Thorpe, that is the CEO of TradeDay. We get into every little detail we possibly can, including what is the biggest mistakes traders make when they start trading at TradeDay, is there a payout cap or not, and what the future of TradeDay as well as what the future of the entire industry looks like. Get insight from somebody in the inside in this video. Guys, smash that like button for me, subscribe to the channel, and comment in the comment section below. Let me know what your favorite trading strategy is, and you're automatically entered into a shot at winning a $50,000 end of day trail drawdown evaluation at TradeDay. Once you pass it, it'll be a sim funded account that'll be end of day, no intraday trail. So make sure you take advantage of that by commenting in the comment section below. You'll be entered into that giveaway. Guys, remember, coupon code all caps JESSEW gets you the deepest discount available at TradeDay and all the other popular firms. Links in the description and comment section of this video. Let's go. Guys, as we jump into this is going to be a two-part video. This is part one that's coming out today and you're watching it right now. Part two will come out on Thursday. And I really think you're going to like that one because we start to get into psychology on that one and it is amazing. I'm talking about amazing. James has been in the industry for a long time. I mean, he was a professional trader for 15 years. That alone is huge. So you have to tune into the next video because it is going to be mind-blowing. All right, guys, so here we have James, the CEO of TradeDay. He's been kind enough to join us today, answer some questions, and give us some insight on the prop firm world and the future of TradeDay. James, thank you very much for coming in and joining me today.
Thanks, Jesse. I'm really excited to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, man, it's a pleasure. So tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell me a little bit about your background. You know, when did you start trading? How long did you do it for? Where and what? And how did you end up, how did you end up doing TradeDay?
Yeah, so it's a long story because I'm long in the tooth. I'm old. But essentially, I got my first start in capital markets in 1990 in London, working for a small retail broker. I say it was small. It was actually the world's largest retail broker from the United States, but they just opened in London. So it was a 5-man team. And I worked for them for a couple of years and then went to work for Cargill Investor Services, which was a more institutional broker for a couple of years. And then eventually ended up making my first trade on the live floor, on the exchange floor in 94. Actually, April the 1st, 1994, April Fool's Day. I think it was April the 1st, either that or April the 4th, it was a long time ago. But it was definitely April 94, and I made my first trade then as what we would call a local, which essentially is a market maker or a liquidity provider, the guys that stood in the pits, making markets as brokers come in asking for prices in products. The product I was trading at the time was the Italian interest rate product, and so I traded for 94 through to 99 on the floor, but the floor closed in 99. It was one of the first exchanges, physical exchanges, that went electronic, and so I had to make the transition from floor trader to, we call them screen trader or off floor trader, type of trader that you are today, right? Sitting in front of a computer. Back in the very early 2000s, that was in a trading room. You weren't trading from home. That really wasn't a thing back then. So I went up to a trading room and then traded from sort of 99 to 2009 as a screen-based, trader in a trading room before joining an exchange. And we can talk more if you like about why I switched from being a trader to working for an exchange for a couple of years. But from there, that took me back to trading and trading management. So in late 2010, I joined a trading group, and I basically to help manage and build their proprietary trading group globally. And that took me to Shanghai. I lived there for 4 years, building prop trading firms in Shanghai. And then that took me to Mauritius, and then from Mauritius to Chicago. So my wife's from Chicago. We wanted to move back here. We got back here in 2016. And then from 2016 to 2020, I worked for a couple of smaller prop trading groups and startups. And then in 2020, during COVID, I was without a job and I was looking for something to do. And I decided to start TradeDay. So, kind of taught myself the sort of basics of building a website and put one foot in front of another. And here we are today, sort of like, 5 years later. Yeah, TradeDay is, a trader evaluation prop trading service. So that's kind of my history in a nutshell. I'm happy to talk more on different aspects if you like.
Okay, man, that's crazy. That is quite the journey from start to finish.
Yeah.
There's a lot there. Let me ask you a question. Did you come from a background, like a family that was into trading, brokers or traders or something like that? How did you end up doing, like getting into
No,
trading?
it's actually a really good question. No, my dad was in manufacturing, and I grew up in a village just outside London, a commuter village. And it's going to kind of sound a little, I don't know, not crazy, but the guys in the village that had the biggest houses were in finance and in broking and trading. And so, and they became family friends. My dad, with children the same age and things like that. And so that was really where my first interest in banking started. And then I remember reading an article. I've shared this story once before, but I think it's kind of funny. I think I was waiting to get my hair cut and I was reading GQ, and they'd done a profile on a day in the life of a stockbroker. And this is around sort of like 85, 86 and 1985, 1986. And this guy during his lunchtime went out and spent like £150 on a pair of socks. And I remember thinking to myself, first of all, that job sounds cool, but man, I would like to be in a position where I had enough money to blow £150 on a pair of socks. And this is in 1985, So that's what really piqued my interest. So a mixture of friends with big houses and aspiring to be people who can spend 150 quid on a pair of socks. Sort of like led me, into finance, into banking, and eventually trading. So yeah, it was the 80s, we're under Thatcher, and it was every man for himself, so to speak.
Yeah, man, that sounds crazy because I mean it's the 80s, $150 for socks. $150 for socks today, in my
I
mind, is a lot
know,
of money.
I know,
So I can only imagine back
Yeah.
then.
Well, I can tell you, I have never spent $150 or £150 on a pair of socks, despite having some relative success throughout my career. Yeah, it's
Oh
crazy.
man, one doesn't lose the value of money. I would say, because I'll
Yeah.
spend a fortune on something that I think it's worth it, but then $20 on something that I'm like, "Nah, that should cost $5." I'll look at it
Yeah.
funny. I'll be like, I don't know
Yeah,
about
yeah,
that.
no, I'm exactly the same way. Yeah.
I'm about to put two new motors on my boat. That's gonna cost me $40,000, $50,000, and
Ooh.
I have no problem dropping it on there because
Yeah,
But
that's
then
your passion. Yeah, yeah.
you talk to me about $150 socks, and I'm gonna be like, what? I'm gonna
Yeah,
look at you
yeah,
weird.
yeah, it's not happening. No.
Okay, so here, let me ask you a question. Now that we, got there and we got to trade day, how do you see or how do you envision the prop space looking like in the next maybe 5 to 10 years in terms of market opportunity and challenges for the
Yeah.
props and how rules might change for traders?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really big question. Like there are a lot of aspects to it. And I'll try my best to sort of like address, what I see the different aspects to it. Prop trading and what we do as a service, which, sometimes people call it trader evaluation service. You and I know it as the prop trading space. If you'd have asked me 3 years ago, what is it? For me, TradeDay, we came in to sort of crowdsource a proprietary trading group. That's what I'd done in the past on the professional side. We've gone to universities, hired people, taught them to trade. Some of those people were successful, not all of them. And those that were successful went on to make money for both themselves and the company. And, I came to sort of TradeDay to do that. And very quickly, realized that our business didn't exist in a vacuum. There was a lot of competition. Let's face it, you're not really going to put your money, actual money, with somebody with a 4 or 5 day track record, which is, kind of where people are now with in terms of like the evaluation. I mean, can you imagine if you were BlackRock or you were investing your 401k and said, yeah, we've got it with this great asset manager. He's got a 6 day track record. He passed an evaluation. We're going to put your money in there. So it kind of like the industry was moving quickly. A lot of competition was coming in. There was talk of regulation, which we can touch on later. And I really didn't know what the future held. I thought the future was, I was optimistic about it, but I thought it was very uncertain. Fast forward to today, I'm coming round to the very firm belief that what we're witnessing is a lifetime structural change in the architecture of capital markets. And what I mean by that is for years, if you wanted to open your own personal trading account, there was only one option. You wrote a check to a broker, transfer, wired, cash, whatever, to a broker, and you put it in. And when you did that, all that capital was at risk, right? And maybe even, particularly when you're trading leverage products, the risk of losing more is very real. Today, if you think you can trade, why put 5, 10, 15, 20,000 in a personal trading account when you can go and take a prop challenge for a few $100, pass it, and they'll put you in albeit a simulated performance account, simulated payout account, or we call it funded sim account. And if you do well from there, into a funded live account, but that you've got access to that type of leverage and capital that you would have had to write yourself, like a $10,000, $20,000 check. If you want to trade NQ, the margin requirement on NQ right now at the exchange is $30,000 a contract. So if you wanted to trade 10 NQ overnight, you'd have to have $300,000 in your trading account. Now, obviously, brokers do day trading margin, and that reduces it, but still, it's a significant amount of capital. And if you can trade, why not go through a prop trading challenge for a few $100 and put yourself into that position? So there's a lot less capital at risk. And I think that's a very attractive proposition. And I think in the future, one, this space is growing. And two, it will become an even. It will be I think that we'll still have the dual. Excuse me. We'll still have the dual system where people can put their own capital in a brokerage trading account or go through a prop. But the amount of people going through a prop versus going directly to a brokerage, I think, is going to grow. That percentage of the users coming to trading live capital, their first instance will be through a prop trading firm. And in fact, I sat with, I won't name names, but a very big futures broker, and they told me 2024 was the year that more accounts were open through prop trading firms that they service than open with them directly. So I really think that's becoming part of, if you like, the architecture of financial services, trading financial services. It's not something very niche that was a flash in the pan, here today, gone tomorrow, which I thought could be the case 3, 4, 5 years ago. Today, I just see it as, what's going to be, pretty much a permanent fixture and a permanent route to trading, and one that people will choose more and more of.
Okay, great. Yeah, I tend to agree with you on that. I see where the industry, a lot of people were thinking that the prop space had peaked out in 2024, but in 2025, we're just seeing more rapid growth. So I could see what you're seeing, where it's just going to keep climbing and getting bigger and more recognized and more legitimized. Now, tell me, where do you see TradeDay itself in the next 5 years?
Well, I hope that we're going to be around for the next 5 years. I'm confident we will be. We have, ironically, an old track record now, right? We're only 5 years old, but in terms of prop trading companies, that makes us an old player. That makes us somebody that's established and trusted. We run our business, with tight risk management. Sometimes that's been detrimental to our growth and our acceleration. Certainly a lot of the feedback we get when traders join us and sample TradeDay as a prop trading group is, yeah, I love you guys, I love what you're doing, but I wish I could do it in one day, or whatever it might be. They always want like rules that will mean they get funded faster or paid out quicker. And we have, moved slowly because what was important to Steve and I, Steve, my co-founder, and I, was one that we were creating a sustainable business, and weren't getting distracted from that mission by like kind of shiny bells going off over here. And what do I mean by that? Well, last summer, so the earlier part of last summer, we had the instant funding like kind of like trend, if you like, or explosion. And I remember, I was really kind of not paying attention until fast track trading launched, and they were boasting about their success on Instagram and X, and other platforms. And I kind of took a look at their model, and I just really couldn't understand it. I was like, I don't know how they're going to survive, and I kind of, at first, I thought that I was the stupid one, and we do a hell of a lot of data aggregation within our platform and a lot of data analysis to make sure that our risk management, and when I say risk management, I mean the risk management of the company, not necessarily the individual trader, but the risk management of the company and the trading group and our payout liabilities and things like that, are well balanced. And we started running through what they were charging for instant funding, and their model, their payout policy, and we were like, something's not right there, something's not right. And then, sure enough, within about 4 weeks, 5 weeks of us doing this, they started to change the payout policy and put further restrictions on, and try and retrofit those to current accounts, and that is always a massive red flag. And there is another firm that launched recently. I won't name names because they are still liquid and active, but I know an investor in that firm, and he was telling me about their success at launch and their instant funding model. And I went and took a look, and I wrote to him. I said, they're going to lose money on that. They're going to lose money on that. They cannot sell it for that, and they don't know it yet. I said, and that's the problem. They could go bankrupt. And he assured me, hey, no, they've got this restrictions on payout policy. They're well capitalized. Sure enough, 6 to 8 weeks later, that firm's changing their payout policy, making it more restrictive, and trying to, retroactively fit rules. And it's kind of like, it speaks to, one, the level of competition in the space, and how TradeDay has to deal with that. And I think before I just talk to that a little bit, it might be useful for me to explain something for some of your audience that don't really quite understand, what I'm talking about. But as a business, an evaluation service company or a prop company is a little bit like a casino, state lottery, or a national lottery, an insurance company, in so much that you bring revenue in through a number of sources. For us, we have a number of different sources, but the main one is the evaluations, right? The evaluations and the resets. And out of that money, you pay out, just like if you're bringing insurance premiums, and out of that insurance premium, you pay out an insurance claim. And you need to understand that you are bringing in more money than you're paying out. And with fast track trading, the issue for them is they brought in a load of money, but payout obligations aren't instant. The payout obligations build over time as people on an evaluation side have to go through the evaluation and pass the evaluation. On an instant funding model, it's a kind of the same thing. It's an evaluation after the instant funding. So you buy the instant funding, but you've still got to meet now certain criteria to qualify for a payout. And that takes time. And therefore, the payout obligation of the money that you've brought in is building. And we could see that, and we could see their payout obligations are building. They don't know it. And I saw it with this firm a few months ago, that the way that they're selling, the price that they're selling the evaluation or instant funding at, and the payout obligations, there's a mismatch there. And I was just doing back of envelope calculations. I'm like, they're going to lose money. And then sure enough, they were making changes. Now that company, nothing against that company. They're still liquid today, and, and doing okay. But that's kind of like how the business works. And so what does that mean in terms of competition for the space, and what does it look like for TradeDay in 5 years? Well, what we've seen is an explosion of competition. People see the opportunity, but as that happens, the product gets commoditized, right? People are trying to compete in terms of either making it cheap or making it easy to get funded, whatever, whatever they don't have much else to compete on other than making it cheap or easier. And if you're making it cheap or easier, then the balance of money coming in is less than the balance of money that will be going out. And in that, at that point, you've created a Ponzi scheme, right? You're relying on money to come in to meet these obligations. So that's kind of like the problem with the industry today is that the barriers to entry are very low, right? There are firms that will open prop groups for you if you write them a check. And then you've got to go and acquire your customers. How do you do that? How do you compete against established firms like ours and some of the bigger names in the space? Well, you've got to make it a little bit cheaper, or you've got to make it a little bit easier to get funded, or, you make your payout rules a little bit less. And that becomes problematic. So for TradeDay, we feel that competition. We try and steer our course. We are a little bit more expensive than others, but our payout policy is the least restrictive, right? And I actually, I mathematically think that we pay out more per funded trader than any other firm in the industry, right? And I'll say that. And you guys in the comments are like, oh, Apex paid out $500 million last year or whatever. I'm not talking about the total amount that's being paid out. I'm talking on average per funded trader, we pay out more than anyone. And I know that. And if you stop to think about it, it's very obvious why, right? Because we pay out on day one. And the longer a person's in a funded trading account, the more likely they are to blow it. And if you clear the buffer on day one, you can take a withdrawal from TradeDay. And there's not many firms like that. And the other difference that we have over other firms that do pay out on day one is if you get funded on an end of day evaluation, if you take an end of day evaluation and get funded, it remains on an end of day evaluation. And and the reason why intraday evaluations are sold cheaper is because they're harder to achieve, pass the evaluation, or harder to achieve the requirements in order to get paid out. So, if somebody's changing your evaluation to an intraday, it's going to reduce your chances significantly, maybe up to 50% of taking a payout. So we know, like, mathematically that TradeDay pays out more on average per funded trader than any other firm. But there's a price for that, right? Our evaluation's 5 days. Some people do 1 day evaluations. Incidentally, we just moved from 7 days to 5 days. Big news at TradeDay. But some people do 1 day evaluations. Some people don't have any consistency rule in the evaluation. We do. Some people are selling evaluations for $20. We can't do that because we're paying out people on day one. The people selling evaluations for $20, you have to watch a 45-minute video to understand their payout policy, and so that's how they're maintaining the balance of bringing in more revenue than paying out, and we're doing it the other way. There's an upfront cost, but once you're funded with TradeDay, you're more likely to take a payout than any other prop firm.
Okay, so yeah, it's funny you mentioned that you guys went from 7 days to 5 days. So now it's 5 days to pass an evaluation, and it is key that if you buy an evaluation from you guys with a static, it remains static when you go funded or sim funded. If you buy it with an evaluation with end of day, it remains end of day when you go into your sim funded. And if you decide to save a few bucks and buy the intraday trailing drawdown, then bang, you go into the sim funded with the end of day, with the intraday trailing drawdown. So it's nice that it's kept uniform, that way the trader can decide right out the gates what they would prefer to do, which avenue they prefer to pursue or test out. So that's good. Now, over the next, let's say, 5 years with TradeDay, how do you see it evolving? Will rules change in any, do you have any plans for payout caps to be higher? I know today, for example, or yesterday, somebody on Twitter, on X, TradeDay, posted, what would you like to see us do next? And unanimously, I was reading through the comments, everybody was like, payout cap, payout cap, payout cap. What do you see, how do you see that evolving over the next few years or few months?
Yeah, that's again another good question, right? I mean, philosophically, our goal, as I said, is to be here in 5 years serving the community. And any business that I've been involved in that's been successful is one that doesn't stand still, no matter how well they're doing. You're constantly evolving your product to meet your customer expectation. Here in the United States, sometimes they call that product market fit. So you're continuing to work on product market fit. There are new evolutions within the industry, and new products coming out that we might design, somebody else might design, and we like the look of, and we have to react to remain relevant. And for example, the instant funding model, we haven't ruled that out, but we have to just figure out what that looks like at trade day that makes it, something attractive for people to purchase. The question, around how do we compete, and are we making changes? Part of the problem, part of the issue of the strategy that we have, where we've evolved slowly to make sure each step we are sustainable, we are growing, we are meeting consumer demand without risking the business. Because let's face it, I could be the biggest and most bringing the most revenue of any proprietary trading firm literally overnight by saying, hey, one day payouts, $20 evaluations, one day $20 evaluations with one day payout, but ultimately, as I said, we'd end up broke, right? So we're taking these steps. Part of the issue with this strategy is there's a lot of old stale legacy information in the ecosphere. So some of these people who are requesting payout caps might be, and this is our fault, right, not theirs, might be operating under the thought that we have a $5,000 payout cap limit because that's what we used to have, and it wasn't a payout cap limit. It was when you got to $5,000, we would move you to a funded line. And, because at that point, we figured that we wanted to be aligned with the trader. And what we found was that when we told traders, hey, well done, you've got to 5,000, we're moving you to funded live, almost unanimously, people will be like, oh, don't do that. I want to stay in funded sim, for a variety of reasons. One of them, in funded live, there's a professional market data feed fee. Although, if you've just made $5,000 trading, it's $140 and whatever it is a month, shouldn't be an issue. But people, like the funded sim market, I think in some ways it's less psychological pressure than the funded live market. And I think also people don't want a disruption to their trading streak, to their hot streak. They're trading well, they've grown their account to $5,000. We say, hey, we're going to move you to funded live. That used to take 3 to 5 days. At Ninja Trader now, it could take up to 10 days because they're so overwhelmed, they're so busy. They are working on it and bringing that timeline back down. But, that's a long time to sit out the market, or, you might be trading at another prop firm, and that might interrupt your flow. You might have been copy trading across the accounts. So we reacted to that. And now, we review traders trading. We have what's called milestones. So they hit the first milestone at 5,000. We review the trading. If everything looks good, and we don't think they're ready for a funded live, or they want to stay in funded sim, we let them go on. And we let them go on, and we let them go on. But we are reviewing it around every sort of $5,000 just to see, is this person ready for a funded live account? Because that's the ultimate goal for trade days, to be aligned with that trader and get a return on that investment in that trader, and scale them and give them more capital, get them growing, make them 2, 3, 400,000 in their account, making trade bigger position sizes. Not a lot of people get to that position, and we got to manage that process through funded sim. But as a result, what we've done is there is no payout cap at 5,000. There is no payout cap ever. You can take out as much as you want whenever you want, but we do review the trading at 5,000 intervals up to around sort of somewhere between 15 and 25,000. If someone's getting up to that kind of level, then we're like, well, if they've got that far, they obviously have some skill. They just didn't hit a lucky streak. Is it time to be aligned with them and review them for a move to funded live? So, there is, I think, an illusion or a misconception that we have payout caps, or that we're capping traders at 5,000. We don't do either. I think that was it that was it on the payout caps. I think it's our fault for having that cap for a long time and not doing a better job communicating to the market. Hey, we do this. And incidentally, we have multiple funded accounts. So we have users with 3 funded sims that they're copy trading, and they're hitting the first milestones at 15,000 cumulatively. The next one's at 30,000 cumulatively. So that's kind of like how things are working at TradeDay.
Okay, so let me ask you, the trader, I'm trading now, right? Let's say I'm trading in the sim funded account with you guys. Just yesterday, I was trading with another firm. I finished the day $7,500. So if I finished the day on $7,500, obviously I went past that $5,000. What'd you call it? What was it?
Sorry, yeah. Yeah, sorry, the milestone that we have,
The milestone. I passed the milestone intraday. What happens then?
Okay, so what we do is right now we don't have the technical ability to cut you off at 5,000, right? Because we want to review at 5,000. That's part of our risk management process. That what I referenced earlier about being really tight on our risk management allows us to operate with certainty and give the trader comfort that that their payouts will happen and that their cash is safe if they built up a trading balance with TradeDay in the funded sim side of things, that the cash is safe, right? So, and we're not going under anytime soon. So that's part of our tight risk management. So what we do is when we put you in a funded account, we say, hey, when you hit 5,000, we communicate this as much as we can because we haven't managed to automate it yet. When you hit 5,000, stop trading, email us, and we will do a review immediately and get you up and running again, if it's the remaining funded sim within a few hours. Now, as I said, unfortunately, we haven't automated that. So what we do have people that will go past and then, email us at the end of the day and say, okay, well, we're going to adjust you back. Then we do the review of the account. And if we want to move them then to funded live, we then move them to funded live. Or if we want them to continue, we want them to continue. So we do have that. We are working on automating it, to make that user experience much better. We're working harder to make our communication better, right? Because there is every now and then there's somebody that hasn't read the email we've sent to them or our milestones FAQ or misunderstood, and it might go significantly beyond. So we're trying to avoid those situations as much as we can, but that's something we're working on. And ultimately, this also goes back to what you were saying about what does TradeDay look like in 6 months, in 5 years, right? All aspects of our business are always under the microscope. What can we do better that delivers a better user experience to the trader? It makes us more attractive to our competition. At the same time, keeps us a sustainable business, right? A sustainable, profitable business. And all things are under review. So we welcome any feedback about the milestones. If people have feedback, they can drop it to feedback@tradeday.com or support@tradeday.com. We'll take that feedback all the time, and we take that feedback into a quarterly meeting. Say, okay, what are the 5 big pain points? What do we want to change? How do we change it? How can we improve it?
Okay, so just to be clear, and this is for me and obviously the audience, like yesterday, in my example yesterday where I was trading with that other firm, we had wild moves, made $7,500.
Yeah.
All right, so now you guys review it. You're like, oh, that $2,500 overage, that's lost.
That's lost. The system resets the account to the $5,000 limit level, and then it comes up to review within the team, right? And then they look, okay, see where we are within the team.
So that's up to the trader at that point. We got to be conscious enough to know, hey, we reached $5,000. Doesn't mean I'm necessarily capped here, but I got to message them and be like, hey, I reached $5,000. What's next? And then if they tell me, yeah, you can continue trading in your sim funded, and tomorrow I make another $2,000. Now, my balance is 7,000. I say, hey, you know what? I want to take $3,500 out of this account. I put in for a payout request, and then we just continue trading.
Yeah, exactly. And in fact, you can put, as soon as you clear the buffer, you can put in a payout request. We ask for 24 hours, but it's usually processed after the end of day run, obviously, once we've got all the stats from the trading platforms and updated our dashboards and the traders' performance. And a few hours after that, it's processed. Actually, they're being processed from the UK. So the end of the day happens here in Chicago or Central Time at around, well, the market's closed from 4 till 5, but because of the amount of data that's been downloaded and processed, it's usually done by about sort of 5 to 5:30 p.m. The dashboards are updated, and then because like the US staff are sort of, most of them are finishing for the day, we asked the London staff to process the payouts because they're going to be on in a few hours. So that's why I think we've had a few people go, "Oh wow, I got paid at like 2 in the morning." What happened there? Well, that's actually 8 in the morning in the UK. And they're going through all the payouts and processing them. So yeah, that's exactly how it works. Our policies, you can withdraw whatever you want, and you can withdraw the buffer funds too. We want to actively discourage withdrawing the buffer funds. So there is a 50% penalty on buffer fund withdrawals, because we want a balance in there. We want you to manage and grow that account, not take it down to $50 and blow it and go back through the cycle again, which happens. But we also understand that there are traders that may need cash, or something's come up in their personal life, or maybe they don't like TradeDay, they want to go somewhere else, whatever. You can get access to them. I know other companies have like a 90-day requirement, or it's usually a time requirement. You've got to be with them live for 60 to 90 days before you can get access to your buffer funds, which always makes me laugh because I know the failure rate of funded sim accounts, in terms of like the length of time that they're live and active. And there's, very rare is somebody getting to sort of 60 to 90 days. It's a small percentage. Most people have either blown the account. A lot of people take withdrawals, but most people have blown what's left of the account or been moved to funded live before that point.
Yeah, that makes total sense. It's just the nature of the beast. We all know that 90% of traders fail no matter where they're trading or what they're trading.
Yeah.
You'll be trading Pokemon cards, you're probably going to fail. It's just the nature of business. Businesses open up and more businesses close, like they don't pass a year or 2 years. If a business is open 5 years, that's an amazing feat. Past 5 years, then wow, you might actually be onto something. And it's the same for traders and trading. Okay, so here I got another question here for you. What has been the most challenging leadership decision you faced as CEO of TradeDay?
Wow. Wow. I mean, it's hard to sort of pinpoint one thing, because I will tell you that this has been far more challenging than anything I've ever done in my career. I'm working harder than I've ever worked, and I'm 56 years old. I thought I'd be on the off ramp at this point, not the on ramp. Listen, when I was trading, for 15 years, that's not an easy job to do. But I was in my 20s and 30s, and I had a lot more sort of like energy, and your appetite to risk as well is different when you're younger. Right, you can afford to sort of like mess up, more because it's just you and you've got plenty of time to correct it. When you're my age and you've got family and young kids, my kids are young, like 14 and 16, but I've got inevitably got university education bills coming down the line, which for anyone in our US audience knows are nosebleed expensive. I can't, everything changes, right? And I think I underestimated when I started TradeDay the amount of work it would take, one, to get it off the ground and get it live. We're not a white labeled solution. We have built everything internally, from the ground up, and actually rebuilt it again in 2023, 24. So, it's just, everything's a challenge, Jesse. Honestly, everything's a challenge. I think one of the things that surprised me the most, was, in terms of challenges of running the business, was having to deal with or come to terms with a very small percentage of the community, who are out to defraud you, abuse the systems that you have in place, and just basically steal with you. Like, kind of, I equate it to, so one thing that we have to deal with, that every business has to deal with, is chargebacks. And some of those chargebacks are genuine. Somebody's, what we've seen this year is an explosion in stolen credit card lists being used. So people brute force their way onto our platform, try and get a payout before they get found out. And some people have their card details stolen, right? And we don't know about it, and there's a chargeback, and that's what it is. That's life. But around 60 to 70% of chargebacks are what's called friendly chargeback by the chargeback industry. And that is people who essentially are shoplifters, or insurance fraud or whatever it might be, who think that the rules don't apply to them. They can come on, consume your product, use it, and put through a chargeback. Touch wood, our rates are relatively low compared to the rest of the industry, and we do a lot of work on security. But what I was surprised about was the amount of work that would have to go into security, and the amount of trade surveillance applications that we have to build. I think I was just like a little stupid and naive, when I started the business. I thought, hey, we'll make a really great product and it'll be really well received by the community and the trading community, and they'll want to use it as it's intended, and for most people that is the case. But you've got to, unfortunately, cater to the percentage that it's not the case, that are here to take advantage, and that costs a lot of money and a lot of time, and it's not a victimless crime, right? The good traders on our platform pay the price for that because we have to spend the money developing the applications, right, as opposed to giving it away like with an easier payout program, or like a less time to get funded, or cheaper evaluations. It's like insurance. Your insurance premium covers your car or your house, but it also covers the amount of insurance fraud that goes on in the industry, right? And so it's kind of, I was just really surprised at that challenge, the length of work that we would have to do to go to secure the platform. And I guess that's been my biggest sort of like leadership challenge, is like, as a CEO, is like, where do we divert, or where do we prioritize our resources? Is it growing revenue? Is it servicing our existing traders? Is it securing the platform? Is it the risk management? It always feels like there are about 10 plates spinning and you're trying to keep them going. And that's the challenge, is understanding which plate's about to fall, and to go in and give it a spin type thing. So that's it, I would say.
Man, I laugh so hard at that, and because I can relate a lot to it. I turned 42 this year, and I must say, man, I'll be honest with you. This year I've been living my dream, but it's been a struggle. I've dealt with a lot of anxiety this year as my business has exponentially grown, how my trading has also grown. The stress factor, I got a 5-year-old running around, and it's all, multiple properties, and it's just one of those things. I'm about to pay off this house because I don't even want the bill anymore, to be honest. I'm like, nope. People be like, oh, Jesse, just put the money in, blah blah blah, and get 6%. No, I just don't want the bill anymore. So hearing you explain all that, I fully understand where you're coming from, because we work in an industry that is literally, from the trader that trades to the prop firm owner, everybody. Like, this industry is the best, worst way to make money. That's how I like to see it. Trading is, to me, the best, worst way to make money. It's a love-hate relationship. There's just so much stress in there. Some days you wake up and you're like, damn it, man, I'm a freaking hedge fund trader. And then another day the market tells you, nah, just go back to your part. Go put the fries in the bag.
It's funny because, we used to have a similar saying in our trading room in London, that trading's the best job in the world and the worst job in the world. It can be the best job and it can be the worst job. And when you think about it, what other job do you do, or career that you have, where you go into the office and there is a high probability that when you leave the office that day, you will be financially worse off? Whereas every other job, you are financially better off, right? Because you're being paid for a day's work. But in trading, at the end of the day, you could actually be worse off. It would have been cheaper to stay at home and stay in bed, So that's how we used to sort of like talk about it in the trading room. And it creates an enormous amount of stress and an enormous amount of anxiety. And, particularly when you're trading, it has the ability to bring the worst out of you, right? Frustration. I can't lost count of how many keyboards I lost over the years through, smashing over my desk. It is a really, really frustrating job, but when it's going right, then it's amazing. It's an amazing feeling to know that you went in to one of the most competitive environments in the world, you competed and you won. It's amazing to know that if you get it right and you grow, the rewards can be substantially more than you would make in any other career. You know, but it takes work and it takes dedication to get there.
Yeah, it really does. And I love that saying, because it is true. It's literally the only thing you can do for work, where you can come in on the day and your net worth actually decreased.
Yeah, I know. I know.
So it's funny, but yeah, but it is also so rewarding, because if you're able to dial it in, you know, you can do very well, and you don't
Yeah.
have to rely on a boss. You don't have to do
Yeah.
any of that. And I think
Yeah.
prop firms really come in there and fit the bill, because see, when I started trading, I had to cut my teeth. I started I'm penny stocks, and I would get like an envelope at times, and I would paper trade on it. I would watch the tape and make sure that the order would have been filled in that level, and I would write down my trades.
Yeah. Nice.
And then I started trading, you know, in simulators, and then I grabbed $30,000 of my money, I put it in an account, and I said that we're gonna start doing this. And boy, oh boy, that's when the anxiety started. I was a great paper trader, but
yeah, you know, I mean, what you speak to there is the psychological challenge. You know, one of the major psychological challenges for people going through a prop group, and that is, you know, honing your performance on a simulator and then moving to live trading. You know, and in some ways people like the funded sim because it's as close as you can get to having your own capital at stake. What I would say is you're in a payout situation, so you experience the psychological challenges and the pressures of being in a payout situation more than if it was a simulator. And you know, we used to call it the sim to funded drop off at my previous firm, because we would do exactly the same thing. You know, I referenced earlier, we would hire graduates from universities, put them through a training program. Those guys would be on a simulator too, and when we felt they were ready, we would move them to live. And you know, and that we would always see a drop off in performance, always. You know, and everybody thinks they're going to be different, and everybody experiences a drop off in performance when they're in the live markets, or you know, in a funded sim, we're going to call it, in a payout. With the pressure of performance, with the pressure of payout, you change the way you trade. Everything changes, you know, and certainly everything changes psychologically from a simulator. So it's managing that. To be successful as a trader, it's managing that process and managing your psychology. Don't run before you can walk. Taking it easy. You know, if somebody's not on a prop challenge and they've got their own private personal brokerage account and they're struggling, what I would say to them, my advice would be to them, go back to a simulator, get some confidence in your strategy on the simulator, then go back to live and switch. You know, make the switch until, you know, you feel like you're making a little bit more progress in live, and sort of blend that experience. So, you know, you're not delineating completely between simulator and live and just making that leap and then not looking back and just blowing through this capital.
Well, that's it for me today, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. Any questions, drop them in the comment section below. Remember to subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you're alerted when I upload my next video, and I'll catch you on another one. Peace.